100% everybody should watch it. It's a fun one.
Okay. Well, AJ just brought it to my attention. I made my media mistake, and I didn't have sound on, but we do now.
Oh, dang
So
it. No, we were killing it.
it was good. All right, so we're gonna back up here for a second, guys. So we look like we did about 2 minutes of no audio there. I truly apologize about that.
That
So we've
happens.
got Eric Oakley here in the house, and we were
It's good.
just talking about how he's killing the video game right now, where
Hmm.
he's staying off the course. He's setting a good example, but so many of the video content creators you can kind of see are not so much in the scene right now.
Hmm.
But there's a few people like Drew and Simon and Eric who's been just killing it with the coffee and the video channel. He was talking about how the stuff he's been doing there with AJ and how Tina's been in the background really just pushing them. And um, I give the rundown pretty good
Yeah,
there.
that's pretty accurate. Pretty accurate. Yeah, make sure you guys, I guess I'll just say is tune into Morning Coffee tomorrow morning. I'll be streaming again on Twitch tomorrow afternoon. That's pretty much it as things go. So, I think, another thing is we've seen even some of the smaller guys get out and do some media stuff, like Derek Bruckert
Yeah.
is doing some stuff. So I think it's just all been really, really cool to see everybody kind of, some people step up and some people kind of just keep coasting.
Yeah, and I know with the Trilogy Talk, I mean, I've really kind of started trying to play with some videos and do various things. And
Yeah,
funny
man.
is, I'm really pretty new to it, but how
Yeah.
many people have come to me to say,
Hmm.
how do you do this? And what do you do? Especially with the Trilogy Live here, where I'm broadcasting multiple people, or things like that. But even
Hmm.
in the videos, and I'm even got to a point now where I'm like, man, what am I going to do next? And some of it's been
Yeah.
following with challenges that other people have been doing, but also the creativity part of me is like, all right, let's come up with something unique that maybe other people want to follow, or that it's just fun content. So,
Yeah.
what time is coffee in the morning?
8:30 Central Time.
All right, so Don on the board asked 8:30 Central Time over on the Whale Pants channel.
Hmm.
And did you say there was another video you're releasing tomorrow?
Yes, we have a fun like what quarantine has been like for us. It's very funny. So I think everybody will get a good laugh in the morning on a Friday. So start the weekend right.
Well, like I said, I know I've been watching your stuff, and uh, you have a household of you, Tina, and AJ, and all
Hmm.
three of you I want on the show. And I
Yeah,
actually almost thought about trying to do a collaboration with all
totally.
three, which probably would have been a lot of fun. But I also want the content, so I'll just make
Yeah,
those arrangements. I want to get Tina on here, and then I'll get AJ on here, and
heck yeah.
it allows you guys to focus. And then if someone else happens to be in the scene,
Sounds
awesome.
like a plan. I like it.
All right. Well, let's start off with just the most basic of the questions. I start off every interview with this as if the people who are watching really don't know you, or we got new people to the game watching it, or people coming from my side of the non-trilogy side who don't know you. So,
Hmm.
kind of just give us that rundown of how did you get started disc golfing?
So a soccer friend of mine, Ian Keeble, he was a little older than me and he had his license. So he said, "Hey, do you want to play disc golf?" And I was like, "I don't know what that is, but sure, let's do it." And he drove by, picked me up. We went out to the course. He had some discs, and we just kind of went after it. He was decent. He was decently good. He was decently good for a beginner, the person who's been playing for a couple weeks. So, and I got to the point where my competitive nature kicked in, and then I just kept playing. I got hooked. I got a couple more of my friends hooked, and we went out to fields through just trying to throw discs as far as we possibly could. There was a disc golf club at our high school that, but they had disbanded before we had really gotten into disc golf. But they had some disc golf baskets out in some of the fields that we were in, so we were able to kind of go out to the fields, rip disc, go do some putting, and have some fun with that. And then I ended up getting some of those cloth baskets that's similar to the Scout, and put those in my backyard to do some extra putting. And I just kind of, it just became this perpetual thing of something that I always wanted to keep doing. And yeah, I was at that time I was way more focused on soccer, way more focused on those types of things, because that's kind of where my mind needed to be, because I thought that was the path that I was going to go on. But never once did I ever really kind of stop playing disc golf. If anything, like I would take 6 months off and then go play, and then another break of a couple months, then play again, type of thing. So I did, it did have some bigger gaps in there, but then at one point I remember kind of, I think it might have been around the time where they did the non-stop disc golf tour with was Dave Felber, Will Schustrick, Nicola Castro, that crew. Kayla Visca was also in there, and I watched those videos and I got hooked. I was like, I want to be a professional disc golfer. This is what I want to do. And I was still playing soccer at the time, so I followed that through until I got a couple of knocks and decided to, all right, let's go back. Let's just do this disc golf thing and coach soccer on the side. And it ended up being the right decision because disc golf was able to kind of take over as I moved around the country a little bit and landed a pretty awesome job. And, fast forward things, go out on tour, and now I'm here. I feel very lucky and very fortunate to have all the opportunities that kind of play out the way they did. But, if you don't go for it, you're never really going to see what could happen.
So at what point were you going through both these transitions? You were playing and you were doing soccer and things like that. At what point were you, I imagine you were pushed by some locals or some friends, but at what point did it become maybe a reality to you? Like, you know what, I would like to maybe try to do this a little bit more. I would like to do it full time.
Yeah.
Tell us about kind of that transition.
So, the first big push was I played a casual round with Tony Shirley, who's on Team DynamicDiscs, and I was, considering playing in some tournaments. I heard when we were playing, I heard him talk about it, and then that's when I kind of became friends with Tony, and I just happened to be at Veterans Park in Arlington, Texas, where the Veterans Park Open is, and so we just played around, and I caught fire, and I was, I had a string of like 7 or 8 birdies in a row, and Tony had been playing. He was a pro at the time and still is, and so he kind of had an idea of what it took to be good. And he saw, like, you don't just see your everyday amateur, especially on a course like Veterans Park, just doing that. Like, yeah, some people can, but it was cool. So he kind of expressed that to me, and I said, well, he said, there's this tournament, you should definitely look at signing up. And I said, well, what division would I play? And he goes, you would learn nothing from the amateur division. You should play open. And so I went straight into open. And so that was kind of one of those moments of I knew that I was ready to take this seriously. And then some life things kind of shook up the page a little bit. And then I ended up in Salt Lake City. So I was not in Texas anymore, in Salt Lake City. And that's where I met Chris Telesbo, also a Team DynamicDiscs player. And we just happened to have very similar schedules, which allowed for us to play almost every single morning. Every single day we were playing. And I think that was it. It was right getting around that time of us playing all the time where we knew we were good and we knew we were getting better, and we were kind of just hoping that it would blossom into something. And I do think that if Chris would have had the same opportunities to go on the road like I did, he would be in a similar situation that I'm in because of his skill set. So, and we kind of, it was one of those things is we were the perfect balance of, we were both at the same level. So that also helped in getting me there to being like, yes, this is what I'm going to do all the time. And then I went back down to Texas for a tournament and impressed Simon Lizotte at that tournament, and was picked up by Discmania and had really good conversations with Jamie Thomas while he was there. And that kind of transitioned to me then eventually driving the RV, which became this thing. And I think that was when I knew I had gone in, I dove all in on, I'm going to tour. And Discmania, we disagreed on a few things of if they wanted me on tour, if they wanted me to work for them, and that's why we separated ways. Because I was like, I want to pursue this. I have an opportunity of a lifetime. I won an A tier. I made lead card at GBO. I was doing things that I was trending in the right direction. So I just said, I need to follow this through. So that's why, and I was very fortunate to have Jonathan Ray, Steven Story, and then a bunch of people kind of put a plug into Dynamic Disc ear, and I feel like I landed in the best possible scenario that I could ever have been to be with Dynamic Discs. And the rest is kind of history. Is that it was at those moments whenever I was able to dive in and go full on the road that I knew that this is the type of disc golf that I wanted to play. I didn't want to play the pitch and putt B tiers. I wanted to play national tours, what now pro tours, majors type of events where the golf is technically at a higher standard, and I think that it shows. If you've any of the tournaments that I've played recently that have been on park courses in the past couple of years, I have generally shot below my rating at those events. But if you put me at most national tours and pro tours, I'm averaging my rating or above. So it definitely did the. I guess I'm rambling here, but I've done the Tiger Woods thing where Tiger Woods didn't go play these pitch and putt courses on the Pro Tour because that's not this kind of golf he wanted. He wanted to be driving the green on par fives in two and stuff like that, and that's where he was going to beat people. So he kind of planned his tour in that way. So that I feel like I've done a similar facet because I know what type of golf I'm good at, and I avoid the kind of golf that I'm not.
Okay.
Bam, big knowledge bomb. Sorry.
Oh, no, you're good. And that's exactly the kind of stuff I want to hear. And even for me personally, I've gotten to know you a little bit over the last couple of years on the road and various things. And some of those parts, a lot of times when I ask these questions so far to the people I'm interviewing, I know most of the answers, or at least a big part of it. But there's always something that comes through and I learn from. So that makes me more educated about as being a fan. Nice. So that way then when I'm trying to promote you guys and different things like that, I have a little bit more. So now you're on DD, and one of the things, and I hope I don't word this wrong, but I know you're on tour and you have the aspirations to be the best. You're out there practicing, you're working hard, and we see it in your videos, and you're out there and you're trying to, 1024 rate, 1025 rated?
24, I think.
Somewhere in that. So you're working your way up, and more every year you're getting more video presence and things like that. But what I feel like you're known for being on the tour, but I feel like you're known more as that influencer, as the guy who throws the felon, the guy who makes the videos, the guys who, him and Tina are on the road and they're doing all these different crazy stuff, and their cats are there in the background, and or stuff like that. So, were you much of a social media presence in anything that you did before being with DD?
I think being a part of some of Eagle's vlogs and some Simon videos back in the day, being a part of some of that, and I think that helped propel some of my fame and fandom and whatnot. That I was the guy driving the Discmania RV and everything, but I was always working on building the social media presence. I was always posting on different video pictures, videos, you name it, to social media. The videos really didn't start until Tina and I kind of had the idea, and Tina wanted to get into videos, so she kind of dove into that. So she's been a big reason why I bet my media presence has had a bigger impact as well. So I feel like I've been very fortunate to have the right people around me. And but I was well known. As crazy as it was, I remember talking with Alex Geisinger when I left Discmania, and he said, I think he mentioned that he was like, it's a really weird decision for them to let you go, because Alex Geisinger at the time was very good. He was, and he still is, but he was one of the farthest throwing players. He was one of the best players out of Michigan. When he came out and played events, you saw him on lead and chase cards of like USDGC and weird things like that. You saw this dude who was so good, but more people in his home state would recognize me over him. So he was like, you've done something here, and I think it's a loss for Discmania, and whomever you end up with is going to be really big, and it happened to be Dynamic Discs. And I do consider Alex a really good friend because he was there and he saw how hard I was working, and I've always had that good relationship with him, as like there's a respect. he knows how hard I'm working, but I respect how good he is, and I know what he's capable of. If he were to be able to devote all his time to disc golf, he could have been one of the best players we ever saw. So, but that's besides the point. So I kind of had that social media following going into this, and it's just kind of exploding from here on out. And yeah, I don't know. I think it helped that I was ready for it. But yeah, I don't know. I was ready for going big into social media. And when I had a conversation with Bobby, it was along the lines of, all right, let's talk. I want to grow Eric Oakley as much as I want to grow DynamicDiscs. And the more we did that, the bigger we got, and the bigger things have gotten since then. So I think that was the other part about joining up with DD, is that our mindset was almost incredibly accurate.
So how many one-on-one messages are you getting, whether just asking you general questions or even asking you to be on like interviews or shows and things like that?
A decent amount, especially right now with all the stuff that's been going on. But it's been good.
So last night you did some, was it 2-on-2s?
Yeah.
Yeah, right. How did those go?
They were really, really fun. We truly enjoyed it. We had this kind of, I don't know, like we had really good people on those calls, and it just made for, all right. And we actually had Bobby be a special guest, which was really, really cool. But it just kind of became this, this just normal conversation. It felt normal. It felt fun. It felt everything we wanted it to be. We got to interact with people. We got to have that good time, and it was awesome. And we really look forward to doing more happy hours and meetups and stuff like that with that close group of people. Because the first time we did, I think we did it with 4 people in the group, but it didn't feel like we were getting those more interactions with people as much as we could. And I have a couple more podcasts that people have asked me to be on, a couple more interview style things, and to be honest with you, this is just great to be able to just kind of interact with another human that's not AJ or Tina. Right. So that's why I've been enjoying the streaming, is like I feel like I do get to interact with people. So it's been good.
So one of the reasons I actually asked you about that is, I mean, I watch a lot of social media and I try to do my part into it. I'm still nowhere near where you're at, and I'd actually probably at some point like to just pick your brain even there, because I'd like to do more from the social media aspect. But when I saw that you guys did, and for those who are listening, basically what Eric and Tina did is they offered out on half-hour slots where 2 people were able to choose to come and sit with them, and they just talked about whatever. And really what I thought that was pretty awesome, because when I looked at it, I felt like that was a sign of your social presence is really going where it's supposed to be going. People they're just not wanting to hear you now. Now they're wanting to hang out with you. And they're wanting to be a part. I mean, they're spending their time, 30 minutes of your time and their time to, again, not just listen and pause and come and go, but to spend one-on-one time. So I personally thought that was pretty cool. And going back to the social media, the slight rabbit hole here is, I first met you, and I don't know if you remember this or not, but it was me and you have a mutual friend, Jerry Patterson, with Launchpad Disc Golf in Kansas City.
Love Jerry.
Yeah, Jerry and Tina have helped me out for the last several years. I mean, pretty much being my right-hand couple, so to speak. But I was running a tournament out at Stocksdale Park called the Bad Rock Creek Open. And you and Tina were passing through, and I was the one running that tournament. And Jerry brought you over and introduced, and me and my wife were there underneath the tent. And
I do remember that.
But I only knew you, though, from that point, because like what you were talking about with Alex, from your social media. And actually, I remember at that point, I didn't know Tina.
Okay.
But I learned Tina that night, because, actually, something came through, and I remember telling this to Jerry, was she popped up that night. And I remember kind of the joke, like when you talk around your phone, and if you talk about dog food, next thing you know.
Oh my gosh, I've done it with the Quest pizza. It's like
Yeah.
the gluten-free pizza.
Yeah.
I was walking in the store and I said, "Yeah, I got one of those Quest pizzas the other day and they were super good." And then like 3 hours later, Instagram scrolling Quest pizza. I'm like, "You've got to be kidding me! Come on." The
Yeah, and that's
coincidence.
exactly what it was like because I remember
Yeah.
that night joking that all of a sudden she popped up in my feed. I mean, more than once, but enough that it stood up like, well, that's Tina. I just met her today.
Yep.
And so,
Very cool.
but now that you're where you're at,
Mhm.
and I really don't know, would you rather, if you had to choose, they both kind of go hand in hand, and I'm trying to figure out how to word the question. I didn't really like the way I wrote my question down. But would you rather, if the game had to, or if your focus had to change, would you rather be focusing more on just tournaments or keep building your personal brand?
Uh, I would take the personal brand.
Okay.
I think now that I've put a lot of time into the personal brand, it's perpetuating itself forward. It's doing the work for itself. Like I can go onto Instagram and in a week sometimes I'll gain 100 followers, if not more than that.
Mm-hmm.
And within I might not have posted anything. I might have made a story or something or liked a couple photos, but I haven't done much. But I've grown so much, it's like this weird thing that it just kind of keeps growing itself. So I wouldn't pass up doing that hard work because there's a reason why people pull for me. It's because they've seen our videos, they've seen me on Instagram. I'm relatable. I can be likable. I can be these things, and in reality, I'm just being me, and it happens to be that way. And I'm very fortunate that I have a decent personality. That thank you, mom and dad, for for putting good genes in me, I guess. But in when it comes down to it, I wouldn't pass that up. I wouldn't. I feel like now that I've done that, that makes playing a lot more enjoyable. That makes playing a little bit more appetizing because I have such a following. People are pulling for me whenever I'm playing well. I have the most supportive messages in the world, and when I'm not playing well, I have the most supportive messages in the world. So I have this kind of foundation built beneath me that I have such amazing people, such amazing support to kind of keep me up where I need to be, even when it feels bleak and dark. So I know that if I work hard and I put in the time, the golf will take care of itself. I'll have a big win. I'll have a big moment down the line, and I'll make the most of it. And here's the other part of the flip side about it. If it doesn't happen, I'm going to continue to be the person I am. I'm going to
Mm-hmm.
continue to do the things that I'm going to do, and just continue to trust the process. That maybe maybe I'm like a sixth man. I'm a support guy on a basketball team or something like that. Maybe I wasn't supposed to have that starlight, but I'm able to pave the way for our next generation, for what it calls for to be a better in the PDGA and be a better professional disc golfer. So I think that setting the standard of just being who I am and growing that social media, I think that's invaluable. I don't know where if I would even be here had I focused more on playing and not the social media side of things. So I that's why I can't, because it has made life for Tina and I a lot easier. And it's made, again, I think it's just now and I'm just now getting to that point where I'm able to kind of wean off how much I do and then invest more time into playing. So I think it was the right, payoff, if that makes sense.
Sure. And I think branding is such an important part of the
Hmm.
game in general. And when you
Yeah.
look at all other sports, I mean, maybe not all, but virtually most all sports, branding is so important among the individuals. Not so much the team or the
Hmm.
brand they represent, but their own personal brand. And I think about even football or basketball or baseball, and a lot of times the most popular players aren't the best players,
Hmm.
but they're branding. They're always doing something. Well, in disc golf, I really feel like there's very few people that really, you have Simon, you have Brody,
Hmm.
who really brand themselves.
Hmm.
I think there are people out there, and no offense to these guys, but like or Drew Gibson's, even Macbeth, who they brand themselves, but they brand themselves more naturally.
Yeah.
They are not always. And I know sometimes they get in spurts where they're doing stuff or they're interacting or collaborating with stuff, but
Hmm.
their stuff comes in spurts where the three of you guys I mentioned, you guys are putting stuff out virtually daily, every other day, where you guys
Hmm.
are building that brand. And Brody kind of had a little bit of leverage because he'd done it so much
Yeah.
before. He kind of came into it being second nature. But
Totally.
I guess more of my question is why do you think that more people don't try to brand themselves? I mean, and before you get to that, I mean, it's not even just social media, but sometimes it's, I'll go to these big tournaments and they'll have a fly mart and you'll have five pros out there, you and a Paige Pierce and like a Ricky or someone like that who will be pushing their stuff and people come flock to you guys. But
Hmm.
between things like that and social branding, social media, I feel like not enough people do it. And I guess, again, my question to you is why do you think more people don't do that stuff?
Uh, so hustling in disc golf was I think one thing that I picked up on from the people who did it before me, the Brody Millers of the world. It was with Latitude 64 a while back. I saw what he was doing when he came to town. I saw what Johnny McRae was doing when he came to town. I saw what these guys were doing to make disc golf on the road work. And I think when I first started getting on the road, is like the only way touring was going to make sense was if I had product to sell and I was pushing that product and doing what I could because that was supplementing my income to guarantee that I was going to the next event, to guarantee that okay, I can pay for that that tournament 3 months from now because that is at the time when you're first getting into it is very very expensive. Sponsors have definitely improved since that time for people going on tour and whatnot. So maybe there's less incentive to hustle, but I can't tell you how much it does for Tina and I in that every weekend because we have our online presence through whalesacks.com. I have a tour fundraiser disc that and other social media avenues that generate money that I walk into a tournament not thinking of like, oh yeah, I invested this in this tournament, so I need to, place at this place. I'm going into the tournament not even concerned with money, not even concerned with any of it, because more often than not, that week I'm probably or that week to month I'm maybe already in the green because of the hard work we've done through promoting our website, through promoting all these things. So I go into the tournament filled with pure joy. I get to just play disc golf today. I get to go out and do my absolute best, and I think that is what has worked for me. And I'm shocked that I don't see more people hustling now. Some sponsors don't want their players to sell discs. They want them to only focus on competing, and they're hoping that the support that they're giving them is enough to keep them afloat. And I would argue that having the avenue to grind and hustle and sell discs and play well, they're gonna make they can double what they would make an entire year, and it takes almost nothing. But the other part of it is why DD and I fit so well together is that we see the benefit of if I go to a fly mart and I sell 100 discs, that's 100 more Trilogy product in everybody's hand, and that's potentially 100 different discs that are going to make them excited about our product. So it's that investment, it's that pushing out and putting into the world. So that right there is where we match up because to me, I want to grow the sport. I want to get as many people hooked on this and be playing it the same way I am. And another part of it is that I I want to do well. So if I can do both of those in a weekend, that's a win. That's the double win. And that, again, there have been plenty of tournaments where I maybe like right on the cash line, maybe didn't cash, but still come out in the green because of because of our vending opportunities and Tina and I's hustling. Um, I know players like Paul Macbeth or Ricky, Simon, and Eagle come to mind where they don't really have to hustle, but we've talked with them, and I've talked with a few of them, like especially Eagle and Simon, and they realized that, man, if they were to hustle and run 5 to 10 events a year, they could make, and especially at their status of in the disc golf world and fandom, is that they have the opportunity to gain so much more by just occasionally running an event. It's like, cool, I just won a national tour just by running this event on the weekend, and I didn't have to really do much, but I didn't actually have to compete. Sweet. And I use that they won a national tour as the amount of money that they get, that they bring in on that weekend. So I do think that they see it. It's just about making it happen. You have to have somebody who's motivated. You kind of almost need a manager of sorts. But I think the beauty of it is Tina and I both can play the manager role. We can both play the player role. We can both play the promoter role. In all three of those scenarios. So we kind of cross all pages where some people need some other people to contact the people to run events and whatnot. So I think that's also part of it, is that, I mean, you know this, you've ran events, you know how difficult it can be to sometimes find a park that will let you be there, find a club that's totally cool with it and doesn't get mad and ask for a bunch of kickbacks and everything, because the way we look at it is like, we're out here trying to grow the club, grow the event, but we, if people are going to try and take money from us, it hurts us, because like, yeah, we want to support you, we will give you product, but we can't give you cash. I don't know, this is very, very minor situations, but I assume you've ran into some of these issues as a disc golfer who's ran events and runs great events, so it's just a part of it. So yes.
Absolutely.
Long story short is, people should be doing it. I don't know why they don't.
Well, and it kind of leads into this. So my next part of that question, and so my question is ultimately going to be: Do you think that the lack of that branding hurts, like the sport as a whole? And one of the thoughts that I have is, and I guess I've never thought about it so much as hustling as it is building the brand. And again, the Jonesboro one from last 2019 really sticks out to me, and because there was people set up, and there was just tons and tons of people, and no offense to the other retailers, but they had nickel and dime, and you guys had lines. Yeah. And I remember walking away from that thinking, man, if Macbeth and Yuli and Simon and those guys were there, they're gonna put people, kind of like you said, they're gonna put discs in people's hands. They're gonna make some money, but really for me, I'm looking at it more from the branding perspective of, how many other sports can you go and walk right up to Paul Macbeth, or Tiger Woods, or any superstar in a sport? But in disc golf, we can as of now. And I think that branding, not only for the individual, but for the sport, when a person can walk up to them, buy a disc, get an autograph, say hi, get a selfie, and I'm talking about all pros, and I realize that that's still 3 hours out of their day while they're supposed to be concentrating. I realize sometimes for the ladies, well, not so much anymore because their schedules have moved to the afternoons, but when they were always playing at 7 in the morning, I could see why some of the ladies would have a tougher time being out till 10 o'clock. So with all that said, my question to you is, do you think the lack of branding, more branding as a whole through our sport, do you think that hurts our sport?
I don't think it. I think we're in a weird place right now because there's so many touring players that people are now getting behind, and you see the same thing in golf. But when you look at a Nike group, and I'll use this as an example, I love Nike. I'm a swoosh douche. I know this. But I look at their golf team. Their golf team isn't 15 players deep. Their golf team is like 5 guys, maybe 4 guys. 5. I don't know how. I honestly don't know, but I know it's not that many. So their focus is on Brooks Koepka. Their focus is on Tiger. Their focus is on McIlroy. Their focus is on like those 3 guys, and they promote them the best they can. We're in a weird spot where, and it's we don't have the same money that a Nike does to say, yeah, we can throw enough money at these 3 guys and make it. So I do think that it comes a little bit as the sport in general is so dense and so populated, where and the pros, the people who are good is insane compared to 5 to 10 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
If five years ago, yes, people were still really good, but compared to now, it's at least double the amount of the same quality of players that are there. The same 10, 20 plus players feels like it's double. Feels like at any point anybody who's above 1,005 has a chance to win that tournament. And that I don't think used to happen back in the day. I don't think and I think that's the part of what makes it so difficult for the overall growth is that you can't you the money is not there enough to support those 100 players. It's there to probably support 25 to 40 players, and that's it. And that's like scraping the bottom of the barrel. So we're in that issue where we have 50, 60 people, and then so we're having to spread even thinner than we'd like to. So all in all, I don't think that having as diverse is hurting us. I just think we've grown exponentially, but we're still a little bit behind the times on our promotion, on potentially even the way the PDGA is set up, where their main focus isn't fully on the growth of the professional side of the game. Their focus is on growth of the overall side of the game, and what's the majority of disc golfers? Amateurs.
Yeah.
So that's where their focus is going to lie. So it makes absolute sense. But if we had more people out there like the Jeff Springs, Steve Dodge, Todd Rainwaters of the world, who are looking out for the pro side of the game and want that growth for the pros, I think that's when the game in general will work out, is when those entities are able to work together and also give some responsibility to other places, like to Todd Rainwater and Jeff Spring, to take over in more of the professional avenues to grow that, because then all the pros will have the more access through the PDGA to grow their own personal brands and different things like that. If that makes sense, I think it's a lot more complex than we'd want it to be, and I don't think anyone's at fault. I just think we've grown so fast that it's become a lot more difficult for it all to make sense, because if we would have understood that we were going to grow like this 3 years ago and be where we are with all these different touring professionals and whatnot, then maybe we could have done something 3 years ago. But we're probably 3 years behind, so we're just playing catch up.
Right.
And so that makes it really difficult. So I don't think anybody's done anything wrong. We just kind of exploded, and we had this microburst, and we're trying to kind of like piece it all together. And I realistically see us having many more microbursts like this, where I'm seeing some of these young kids at a lot of different tournaments come up, and I'm seeing the way they play, and I'm seeing how fearless and incredible they are, that I know that I have to stay at the top of my game just to be able to keep up, because in 5 years, whenever these kids are 22, 23 years old, maybe even younger than that, but able to compete and able to get out on tour, it is going to be a lot harder to place where I've been placing, because there's just the quality is going to be exponentially better, as it has been growing at that same rate even to today.
And I wasn't by no means was a question implying that any of those people are doing anything wrong. It's probably more of the hope to educate, they'll either whether they see this or fans see it and they start really drawing it. But like you had said, if you took 25 or those 40 people who are at any given time able to compete for those tour spots, and if you cut even half of them did it, you're still only at 12 or 20 people, which is more than, I think, double of what we have now of people. I mean, again, I know that people are doing it, but they do it as it comes in.
Totally.
I've got some clothes, purchase them, they sell out, you don't see anything for another month until the next item comes in. Where I talk about those three things, not that they're always selling, but it's the videos, it's putting more videos, it's making more challenges, it's making more closeness to that fandom.
Yeah,
by
absolutely.
being used to them. Because again, there really isn't any other sport. You don't see Aaron Rodgers and Tiger Woods and those guys just having videos and just to be a part of their fans. And that's where I think disc golf is very unique.
Absolutely. We're still in disc golf. We feel enormous.
Right.
But outside looking in, we are still very small. But I think that that does put us in such a unique situation where Tina and I can have a meeting with somebody, a two-on-two meeting, and be able to have that interaction with somebody that makes them fans for life, that builds that kind of cool friendship relationship with your fans, that does something special. So, I think we might not stay in this pocket of disc golf, but man, we should make the most of it and create the best fans we can.
Absolutely. So, all right. So now we're talking about like the growth of the game a little bit. And over the
Hmm.
last few years, you've been vocal and you've been a part of meetings. I remember you being a part of the summit conference that they did over at Maple Hill, talking about sizes of baskets. I've
Hmm.
seen you just on other, talking about different aspects of the game. You were talking in your hot takes on the Disc Golf Answer Man about tee pads.
Yep.
Those are all just facets of the game. But do you have anything in your mind that you think the game, not necessarily equipment, but the game is missing to elevate it to that next level?
Uh, I think it all comes down to the quality of course design. You've seen some places where we walk in and there's quality course design, and those tournaments genuinely do incredibly well. Um, if you look at and now quality course design has drastically changed in the past 5 to 10 years as well. So, and I'm going to dog on this because it's the easiest place to look at. But the Memorial, we have outgrown both courses. We have outgrown them as a sport where it's not that enjoyable to watch, and I think I will have a decent amount of people who agree with me that it's not even that much fun to play. So if we can elevate the level of course design, and I say, I've played some of Eric McCabe's courses, I've played some of Avery Jenkins' courses, and I think if we get more people involved in course design, so people who are at our level and understand it, and now not everybody's going to be good at course design. It does take a lot, but the more we can elevate it to that, to have courses like Brewster Ridge and Fox Run Meadows with Steve Brinster and Jeff Spring heading that up. They've played a bunch of different courses, and that's why they made such two fantastic courses. You look at Maple Hill. If everybody had a property like Maple Hill or Jonesboro, big properties, rolling hills, awesome opportunities to go into the woods and out of the woods, then we'd have more courses like those. Now, that's the other part, is we don't have all those properties to make it work. But if we don't have those properties to make it work, we need to have the course designers who can make the most out of something. So I do think that is what it's going to take. And when we go back to the smaller baskets thing, just for a quick second, I've conceded that argument as long as course design gets better. UC Maresma, I think, also designs a fantastic disc golf course, having played his rendition at the La Mirada Open, and having played the Beast. So I do think that if we have more people who can do things like to that magnitude of Avery, Eric, UC, and I know I might be missing a few, but that level of course design, if we can get more courses to make sense and we can get the people to run events there, the whole level of the game is going to grow, and the whole level of the professional side of the game is going to grow, because we can't keep going back to these places and have the courses be too easy. We can't go to these places and they're having to make awkward and fluky adjustments to the course that take away from what the course was originally designed to be. I use hole 18 at Vista del Camino as a prime example. How much fun was it watching Eagle go for it, try and ace it to try and catch up to Calvin? It wasn't. It really wasn't. If he didn't have to throw it through a triple mandatory, then I think it makes that hole significantly better. And now there's a safety issue, and it's like, well, if there's so many safety issues, then why are we there? And the same thing goes for and one of my favorite tournaments is the Masters Cup. The Masters Cup is a very different tournament. It would have been a very different tournament this year. It was a very different tournament last year than it was years prior of because of erosion, because trees have fallen, because of safety, because of a lot of these different things. So it starts to lean us towards maybe we need to move and find other big tournaments that can host it, that have the quality courses there. Now we're talking they have to have the quality courses. We're running into the same issue of, do we have the organization that can run these quality courses? Because there are plenty of amazing disc golf courses around the country. Top quality disc golf courses that would make premier events in disc golf. Now, what has to happen is you have to also, so we have the course design, everything's up, but is there a community there, a club, a guy, a Scott Reek of sorts, a Jerry Patterson of sorts, or the many different Doug Bierkes? If we had 50 Doug Bierkeses spread around the country, we'd be fine. I would never worry about a tournament ever again because I know it would be good. But that's the issue, is some of these places that have these events don't have the core to run an event. They don't have the same thing. Like I also, hats off, as Jeff Jacquois out at Las Vegas. He's got the crew. He's got the core. He has too many holes on a golf course, but that's we could talk about that a whole different that's a whole different discussion. So but you look at that, and that's the standard. That's the biggest part of it, is if we can have these courses, have the crew and leader in these places, then I don't think we have to worry about the disc golf touring scene at all.
And I'm glad you mentioned about the tournament directors and the scene itself, because when I asked the question, I kind of expected the answer about the courses or flow, schedule, things like that. But I guess for me, it's definitely not being at your level. But when I travel to any tournaments, what really matters to me is how it's run, the crew that's behind it, the tournament director, of things like that. So, but now I'm going to put you on the spot here. So you made the comment about Arizona, and I totally agree with you, Arizona. I've been there every year since 2009. I love going down there. I've always said that the event is what it is because of the time of year. And if you had that event any other time of year, it probably wouldn't get the following. Even if it was on the tour, I think people would elect to skip it a little bit more if it was, like, say, mid-season. I know really where Arizona's at, that wouldn't fit. So my question is, if Jeff Spring and Todd and those guys are watching this right now and they hear you and they're like, you know what, we agree with you, Eric, Arizona's out, which tournament are you telling them to put in its place?
Goat Hill.
Okay.
Goat Hill Challenge in San Diego, because you could run it at a similar time frame. And Goat Hill has to be on board for that, but I know Alan Risley and AJ have worked incredibly hard, and a lot of the people down there in San Diego. So Phoenix is awesome, but also so is San Diego.
Yeah.
Now it's a little bit more expensive, but also when we go to Phoenix is season baseball, whatever it is, spring season of baseball. Was it spring training? Spring training in baseball. Sorry. So Airbnbs are all booked. Hotels are expensive. A lot of those things. So it doesn't change that much. And also San Diego is, I think, far and away better than Arizona. Like, yeah, deserts have their allure, but you can go to the beach. Sorry, that wins, in my opinion. But that's all to each their own. But what also happens is Goat Hill would be a pro-only event, and that's the only part that sucks. But they would have an amateur side, but it would not be on the same weekend because of it being only on one course. But the course itself is pro caliber. It is going to go through changes to make it even harder than previous years. Alan is open to feedback, but sticks to his guns, so he's got that level of it's going to stay to his design. It's going to stay to the things that he wants to see, but he's also completely open to look at the stats, look at the numbers, and make adjustments where they need to be. If a par 4 is, you bring a Kevin Jones, Seppo, AJ, myself, you bring all these guys out there, and that have gone, Thomas Gilbert, who won it, you bring us out there and we birdie it all 3 rounds that were out there, then you have to make a change because if it's too easy, then he wants to make it a little bit more difficult. So he's looking at those things to make it not too crazy and not insane, but to that same level. So I would 100%, and I've actually told Jeff Spring this before, is that would be the perfect event to substitute in. But it also does work at the beginning of the California swing. If we did like a Goat Hill, Masters Cup, then San Francisco, that also does work. But I do think if we are going to continue to start the year as early as we do, it makes sense. And if you do it before or after Vegas, it's not that far of a drive to go in between those two events. So it also works in that facet as well.
I like it. It's also one of my bucket list places, Goat Hill. So I'll send a strongly worded letter to the CEO of the tour and we'll see what that gets us.
See if that gets us anywhere. I like it.
Probably not. I've heard some letters from a lot higher people than me that
they got pushed back for sure.
Right. So, all right. So we'll get off the competitive side a little bit. You've got AJ there with you. You've traveled with AJ. You were just talking about AJ. Mm-hmm. What's it like to hang out with AJ?
He's I think Erica Stinchcomb has put it perfectly. When we hang out, it's like, think about a person who only talks in sound effects because they're goofy and funny. That's AJ and I hanging out all the time. Like half the time, it's some stupid saying that we've had from 3 years ago when we first met, and you bring it back up, and then we both laugh about it. So I think that's what it's like for me to hang out with AJ. I know Tina, outside looking in, is just thoroughly annoyed because she's just like, God, you guys have laughed about the same noise you can both make with your mouth for days. And so there's a little bit of that. But AJ is a motivated and high intellectual level. He's big brain. He's very methodical. He does a lot of things, and it's cool to see be able to see it for months now. Is how much he's thinking, how much he's going through it, how much he's putting into his mental side, into the physical side of the game, and everything. So AJ to me is somebody that I will thoroughly enjoy being with. He's one of my best friends and will always be. So I think it's easy for me to get along with him. But all in all, very fun. He's a fantastic cook, by the way, so that also has its benefits. So I think he might actually be cooking dinner tonight, but who knows? We'll see.
Yeah. So when I went to Arizona and Vegas this year, and I went there to do Trilogy Talk, but I also went there with my DD Latitude Westside hat as kind of a team liaison, and I followed you guys during those, specifically Arizona, but I did a little bit of both events. When I came back, both Bobby and Rusko asked me, how I liked it, how it was the experience of me kind of wearing that hat versus just being a fan. I worked with you quite a bit and various people. And I remember telling them that I got to see sides of people that I had never noticed or I was paying more attention to. And AJ was one of those where I would say, and you were actually there when I gave this example, but we were on like hole 4 and Jomez came through with the drone. And AJ was back of the basket putting out, and he started doing this, his dance or whatever. But minutes before that it had happened, me and AJ were talking, and he was making these philosophical comments, and he was talking about the game, and he was at a totally different level that I had never heard from him before.
Totally.
I'd really only seen the goofy side.
You don't see that much as well on camera or on his social media, maybe on his waffle thoughts, but you don't see that. So it's a really cool thing to see in person.
But yeah, it was a really, like I said, for me, it was a really cool experience for just being kind of wearing that hat. And I got to see it with a lot of people. And, not everything was always good, but 99% of it was positive. Yeah. And it was still just neat seeing that stuff. So
Totally.
All right, well, I'm going to get you started ending here a little bit. I've had you on right at an hour, so
I've enjoyed it, man. This has been fun.
You got some AJ food back there. I have one question from the board at the moment, but I have one question from you that I don't know the answer to. How did you come up with the name Whale Pants?
Whale pants came from Tina having the company Whale Sacks, and so that was the whale part.
Yep.
And back in the day, my buddies Kyle and Weston from the Dallas Fort Worth area, they said this first, and I picked up on it, and they were like, they'd make a putt when we were playing a casual round, and like, ooh, I got my putter pants on today, and so that became this thing, and we always like, ooh, yeah, I got my putter pants on. I ain't got nothing to worry about. We also used to say it's like you throw it and it goes down a hill, and it's like it's all good. I'm an uphill putter. So like you'd always say something good before you go and putt, and it just became this thing that became infectious. And I kind of latched onto the putter pants part of it and used it as a hashtag when I was first starting my Instagram, because I knew that that was something that you kind of wanted to have, is to build a following, is to create an hashtag that then you can continue to use and continue to have that going forward, like kind of similar to Is That Good? Nowadays, like I still do hashtag putter pants from time to time, but Is That Good has become an even bigger thing, which I'm very happy to have. But so that was basically where it came from, is I had the nickname Putter Pants, Whale Sacks, Whale Pants came together. Putter Sacks wasn't as good. Whale Putter is not also good. So it was the one that made the most sense. And I actually, on a disc, drew the Whale Pants logo, or a rough draft of the Whale Pants logo on a disc. And then I ended up giving it away before a tournament because I threw it and it got punctured with a thorn and became illegal because it had a hole in it. And I was like ready to throw that. It was like my main distance driver at the time. It was a Bio Enforcer, Handeye stamped, beautiful bomber, working it, and it just had a hole in it. And I was on lead card of that VPO round, and I said, all right, I can't have this in my bag because I will want to throw it, and it's illegal. So I handed it to somebody, but it had the original rendition, so now somebody has a cool keepsake.
Yeah, I gotta find that guy as a DD collector. I was like, where's that at?
He's out of Texas. You could ask in the Texas, I think, chain rack crew. They might be able to hunt him down.
Probably cost me a penny now.
Yeah, maybe. Now he knows that you're looking for it. He's gonna be like,
Right. I need some new stuff. I need a new bag or something like that.
Right.
So, all right. So on the board, we got a few people saying hi. We got Can You Putt, Don Mordecai, Russell Morgan, Chad Smolyuk, Eric Hornrose, and Jerry's out on the board. So
Nice.
actually, Eric is asking. My question to Eric is he going to go back to the European Open when the new date for the major event? I don't have my glasses on, people, so I got to read closer. Yeah. Is he going back to the European Open when the new date for that major event after July?
I would like to. I still have my plane tickets, so we're going to reschedule the flights. We're going to cancel the flights, or move the dates around. If I legitimately will not miss that if it makes sense. But if it becomes like they put it on this, let me look at the schedule right now. I have it on my computer because I like that kind of thing, to know what I'm doing in life. I think this is it. Yeah. So if it were to be moved on like the same weekend as like Maple Hill or Green Mountain, sorry, I can't fly to Europe and miss those types of events. Now, if it's on like a weekend of Delaware, I consider it because I have my feud with Delaware, but I want to go back and I want to beat that course. So I'm hoping because it's a major that they find a good week to fit it on, and it makes sense realistically. So, and we have to work it out as it needs to make sense as where we fly out from and everything, because we might have to fly out of Chicago, which could suck. But if it's after Ledgestone, then that could work. So there's just so much there to it that it brings a lot of craziness to the whole scenario. But realistically, I'm going to go, even if I go over and I have one day to get over jet lag, maybe 2 days to practice. I'm gonna play that event. Hopefully I put myself in, put my body in good shape to be able to handle that and adjust and go out and have a good tournament, because missing a major just doesn't make sense to me anymore. I feel like I should be playing every major, every national tour, every pro tour. So
I like that. So,
Yeah.
of course, the schedule could be a whole nother hour conversation just in itself.
Oh my gosh.
But maybe we'll get that to the next time I get you out on here. But I said,
I'd like that.
I'm gonna get you out. Go enjoy AJ's food. Last question. A lot of people probably already know it, but if people want to support you, how do they find you?
All right, so best places is check Tina and I out on Instagram at the Eric Oakley at TKOakley7. Whale Pants on YouTube is a wonderful spot. Follow me at Twitch TV/AROC That's AROC. And if you go to whalesacks.com, you can pick up some of these Moonshine Lucid X Felons. This is the matte gray stamp. I think I kept a couple of these because I think the stamp looks fantastic because you haven't really seen it too much. So that is a wonderful place. But also, please go to the DynamicDiscs website. Support us. Support by buying any of the Lucid X Felons you see on there. That would be a great way to support me as well. Last thing, Patreon, Whale Pants. And make sure you guys, if you're not following this guy, subscribe to this guy. Make sure you guys are getting behind Trilogy Talks. Scott has one of the best rounds I feel like I've played in recent years. It's not the best round, but one of my better rounds on his YouTube channel from Fountain Hills this year, and it was a good showing. So definitely, he's got even more. He's got a lot of players that aren't even on the Trilogy team as well, so you can get some of your favorite golfers if they're out there. So make sure you guys are following this guy.
Excellent. Everybody's watching. All of those links and things like that he just said will be down in my description. And that hot round highlights. I have two channels. My underpar channel, Underpar Disc Golf, which is your full round.
Yeah.
And then I have your highlight round, which is my #1 viewed video on my Trilogy Talk.
Let's go.
So, all right. Again, thanks for coming, Eric.
Anytime.
Definitely like to get you back again if you're willing in the future. But I look forward to all this stuff.
Name the day, dude. I'll be there.
Absolutely. I look forward to this stuff ending so we can get back out and I can film some more good rounds.
I'd like that, man.
Catch you later. Good night, bud.
Take care, Scott.
Yep, bye-bye. All right, guys. Thanks for everybody for watching. It was a great interview. Like I said, everything from Eric is going to be down in the description once this live stream archives. Make sure you check and follow all of those things, even if you're not actively using any of those. A lot of people don't realize, and I say it every time, is just like it. Following and watching and getting some view times helps those algorithms, but the likes alone are a part of what those players need, especially when they are monetizing, things like that. So make sure you're checking them out. Next week, we got Rebecca Cox on Tuesday, and we have Steven Schrader on Thursday. And if you're not following Trilogy Talk, check it out. I have a tournament now that I'm doing on Sunday with Disc Golf Valley and a lot of other things. But like we've said, like, share, subscribe. Until next time, keep sharing the Trilogy love with the world. See ya.